Hey guys, welcome to the channel. We are going to get started with a series I hope to continue because I've been sort of flaky for the last year. You know, they got my medication right, so hopefully I'm okay. We're going to talk about Iron Maiden's Powerslave. This came out, even though it was 84, I was around 13, 14 when it came out, I was still discovering heavy metal. And I'd gotten into heavy metal when I was 12. I was eventually introduced when I was around 15 or 16 to Iron Maiden and was completely flabbergasted. Just, MTV, they were showing the videos for 2 Minutes to Midnight and Aces High. And then, of course, I saw Flight of Icarus and, these other videos that have been around for a while. So I knew that they were a force to be reckoned with. And really the album that got me into Iron Maiden was Somewhere in Time, but like anything, I went back and listened to the previous album and Powerslave, and I was entranced. Powerslave was released in 1984, stands as one of the most defining albums in just general heavy metal history. It captures the band at the height of its kind of creative power, newly stabilized lineup, because they had gone through drummers and just, it's just everything, but they finally, Bruce Dickinson is definitely the singer. Nico McBrain, who replaced Clive Burr, is definitely the drummer. Everybody is getting solidified, and this honestly is going into peak Iron Maiden, which, led to their monumental live album, Live After Death. It was actually done on the Powerslave tour. But it was a really heavy push into their sound, more ambitious, more theatrical, technicality, and it was demanding territory, which is with its iconic, you got the ancient Egypt aesthetic. Let's take it out of the plastic here. This ancient Egypt aesthetic, its blend of speed and grandeur, its legendary supporting tour, is considered the pinnacle of Iron Maiden's classic era. So in 1984, Iron Maiden had already reshaped the metal landscape with 4 albums in sort of rapid succession. But Powerslave marked a turning point. It was the first Maiden album recorded with the same lineup as the previous album. Bruce Dickinson, Steve Harris, Adrian Smith, Dave Murray, and of course Nico McBrain. The stability created a new level of cohesion and confidence. The band had endured major lineup changes between every previous album. With Peace of Mind back in 83, drummer Nico McBrain joined and really completed what is considered the classic Maiden lineup. And for the first time, the band could build on the chemistry it established on the previous album and on the previous tour. And you really feel that in Powerslave. The album was recorded at Compass Point Studios in Nassau, Bahamas. And that's the same location where like AC/DC and other acts had worked. The tropical setting created kind of a strange contrast to the album's intense, historical, and really often dark subject matter. It was long days of writing and rehearsing in this converted warehouse, a mix of discipline and chaos. Nico McBrain famously drove a goat cart around the studio grounds. And producer Martin Birch, a longtime collaborator, helped refine the band's increasingly complex arrangements. And despite the distractions of island life, the band delivered one of the most technically demanding albums. The album itself starts out with Aces High. It's this blistering opener about World War II aerial combat, some from the perspective of a British fighter pilot. Bruce Dickinson's soaring vocals and the twin guitar harmonies set the tones for the album's intensity, which leads us in to 2 Minutes to Midnight, a politically charged anthem criticizing war profiteering and Cold War brinkmanship. Its mid-tempo groove and really sharp riffs made it one of Maiden's most accessible singles, and it was all over. The video was all over MTV back in the day. Lost for Words, Big Aura, is a instrumental, which we don't get too many of. The last one that kind of comes to mind was Transylvania. But it's a rare instrumental showcasing the band's tightness and melodic interplay with this now solidified lineup. A song about vengeance and swordsmanship is a song called Flash of the Blade, later famously used in Dario Argento's film Phenomena. And we move on to The Duelist, which was inspired by the Ridley Scott film of the same name. This track features galloping rhythms and extended instrumental sections, something that would become increasingly associated with Iron Maiden. And, you know, obviously the subject matter, they really love to write about history and films and books that interested them. And we move on to Back in the Village, which was it's a frantic kind of high-speed track referencing the Prisoner TV series, of course, something they're huge fans of, continuing their theme from earlier Maiden albums, you know. And, of course, we have the title track, which dives into Egyptian mythology and the corrupting nature of absolute power. Bruce Dickinson's lyrics explore the perspective of a dying pharaoh, blending historical imagery with existential dread. And of course, the album's closer, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, the album's crown jewel, a nearly 14-minute epic based on Samuel Taylor Coleridge's poem, and it features multiple musical movements, spoken word passages, atmospheric soundscapes, shifting tempos and moods. This track really pointed towards Maiden's future as masters of long-term storytelling. Let's talk about this iconic artwork, Derek Riggs' kind of Egyptian masterpiece. The album cover is one of the most recognizable in metal history. It depicts really the massive Egyptian temple as Eddie as a pharaoh, surrounded by hieroglyphic jokes and hidden details. Like it visually unified the album's themes. It became the blueprint for the stage of the World Slavery Tour, and it remains one of the most merchandised images in Maiden's catalog. Speaking of the World Slavery Tour, it was a marathon of mythic proportions. Supporting Powerslave, Iron Maiden launched the World Slavery Tour, and it had over 190 shows across multiple continents, a massive stage set replicating the Egyptian temple from the album cover, and it had really elaborate lighting and pyrotechnics and a giant animatronic Eddie. I'm sure if you've seen the Live After Death VHS or DVD, it's incredibly entertaining. The tour was so grueling that the band took a year off, you know, just to kind of get back to being normal before they went in to record their next album, the classic Somewhere in Time, which I'm sure I will talk about in a future video. Now, interestingly enough, the critical and fan reception upon the release, it was praised. I mean, it was considered the best album to date based on the musicianship and the thematic cohesion, the ambition just overall. And really, moving on 40 years later, you know, it's only grown in stature. It's the band's tightest and most confident performance to date, in my opinion. It's a perfect balance of accessibility and complexity. You really could... It's got the power metal blueprint on it without going full on power metal. It's a defining moment, really, in the evolution of Iron Maiden. And many fans and critics consider it one of the greatest, not only Iron Maiden albums, but one of the greatest heavy metal albums ever recorded. It inspired countless power metal and progressive metal acts, obviously. At around the time it came out, you had Kai Hansen with Halloween, and I wouldn't be surprised if, just for the fact not only did he want to concentrate on guitar, but he brought in Michael Kiske for Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 1, and very much, probably they got accused of being Iron Maiden clones, but bringing in Kiske obviously leveled them up, and you can definitely tell Bruce Dickinson was a huge influence on Michael Kiske. It set a standard for long-form storytelling. It cemented Maiden's reputation as global heavy metal leaders and ambassadors. You know, I mean, like, when you think, if, you know, this talk of the big four, the big five, or the big three, if you talk about the greatest heavy metal bands of all time, Iron Maiden is always going to be in that list. The cultural impact of Aces High and 2 Minutes to Midnight remained staples on rock radio and in heavy rotation on MTV at the time. Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner is still considered a masterclass in metal composition. And again, going back to the Egyptian imagery, it became permanently associated with the band's identity. And 40 years plus, Powerslave continues to appear on greatest albums and best of and all that list, and remains a fan favorite on tour. So really, Powerslave is more than just an album. It's a statement of artistic ambition. It captures Iron Maiden at a moment when their creativity, their musicianship, and theatricality aligned perfectly. From the explosive opening to Aces High to the sprawling odyssey of Rime of the Ancient Mariner, the album stands as a monument to what heavy metal can achieve when it embraces both power and imagination. So that's just my little love letter to Iron Maiden's Powerslave. I absolutely love this album. I'm going to have to actually throw this on the turntable and listen to it after talking about it so much. Thank you for joining me for this video. I hope to see you in the next one. Later.